Hi, hello everyone. I'm Adri Szopian and I'm going to be presenting SalesforceDX VS Code for clickers not coders. My goal for the day is to actually encourage all the consultants and all the admins in the world to utilize Salesforce VS Code in SalesforceDX. There is so much capability behind it, so it would be a waste not to use it. I'm a Salesforce developer, but my goal is basically to just go more for the click and not for the code if possible. So let's see. Before we had early age Salesforce IDEs, which would be force.com as well Maven's Mate. I think I touched I moved and I touched okay. And then we've also had the recent ones, which is VS Code and Illuminated Cloud and Velkin Suite, Cloud9. I am very much acquainted with VS Code. I have used it before. I really enjoy using VS Code because it's quite lightweight. It's very easy to use, and the extensions are updated and supported by Salesforce as well. Unfortunately, I don't really know a lot about the other IDEs, so this is why I'm actually encouraging more and more the use of VS Code, especially for the reason of being free and so easy to install. I would like to say that it supports 70 plus programming languages and as well has integrated command line and debuggers, suppose Git natively, and you can benefit from a lot of extensions. If we install VS Code, we will need as well to have Java and to set Java. I'm very happy to say that we have to do this only once. And after we're going to be able to do this, then we can start using it properly. As well, we need the the CLI, the command line, to have it installed. Even if you don't use command line, you're going to have to install it because the package, the Salesforce extension pack that we're going to install next, is going to make use in the background of the command line. Then, for this demo, for the demo that I'm going to show you, I'm going to use VS Code to connect with any org. The reason for that being, all over the internet, we have more promotion on Scratch orgs, and I've realized that among consultants and among admins, there is not much knowledge about connecting with any org. You can connect to your Trailhead, you can connect to your Sandbox, you can connect to absolutely any org possible. So in order to do that, we just need a few steps. We need to go to Command Palette in VS Code. We're going to create a project. We can create a project or create a project with manifest. We're going to create an empty project, authorize an org. So these are very simple steps. The difference between Scratch orgs and just connecting with any org is that the Scratch orgs have the control version and the version control, and it was going to be easier to follow that. But if you just need to fast connect to any org to see what's inside it, then I would suggest just connecting this way. SFDX-project JSON. So the JSON file is really important, as you're able to see here. Is going to give us the address, the login address, which can be login.salesforce.com, or if you're connecting to a sandbox, that would be test.salesforce.com. As well, you can select here more other properties. That JSON file supports other properties you can find online. And this is going to be very helpful for your projects. As well, very, very important is the power of the package XML. Whatever package XML supports is wherever you can actually retrieve and deploy to your org. And you can have Apex classes, of course. You can have custom objects and quite anything that you can find in the documentation for it. Now, I'm going to go ahead with the demo. let's just open Visual Studio Code. So this is the looks of Visual Studio Code. We're gonna have here the folders. Here we can search in our code. Here is the version git control, the version control. We have a debugger. Here, this icon will help us search extensions. Here is the place where you're gonna install command line, so the Salesforce CLI. Right after you went and installed VS Code from the internet, this is the next step to follow. You just go here. I already have it installed, so it's quite easy. You can find a lot more information if you click on that link, and it's going to take you to a page where you can actually see the documentation about it. Then we can go and install the Salesforce extension pack. As well, here I have it installed, but it's really easy. We're just going to click on this button, and we can have so much control over our orgs. All right, then. If we're going to go, the command palette is the place where we're going to write all our commands. So we can create, for instance, a project with manifest. I think it's best for us first to open the terminal. As I mentioned before, VS Code has a built-in terminal. So we're going to see here whatever we're going to write in the command palette, we're going to be able to actually see in the terminal. So let's create the project name. So it would be Demo London's Calling. Okay, on the desktop. It started to run. Okay, now this is the new code format. It's called source format. The idea, so all the admins and all the consultants are very well acquainted with the old way of sending the code via chain set. So you're promoting the code from one environment to another until it reaches production. But then, in this way, we can actually send the code via package. And we're going to have here the new code format. Let's see if I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to authorize an org. I think I moved again. I'm going to select production this time because I'm going to, I just signed up to a developer edition right before this session, and I'm just going to give it a name. So I'm going to create a demo. Demo SFDX London's Calling. I'm going to log in. So we are just going to create a field on the account. Let's just say a text field. I'm going to call it test, which is a really, really bad name for the session. Okay, I'm going to give full visibility, which is also a very, very bad idea. Okay. I'm going to navigate back to my Visual Studio Code. You're going to observe that there is a new cloud here. along the icons. So before authorizing an org, we did not have this cloud. If we're going to click on it, we're just going to realize we're going to see an org browser where we could observe the whole metadata existing in the org. So let's make use of this amazing cloud. This is one of my favorite features, and kind of this is the reason why I wanted to present this session. It's when an admin would have a whole new org in front of him, then he would have the possibility of taking all of retrieving all the objects, or he would have the possibility of looking on all the features that the org has, on all the metadata. He could see everything just by clicking here. For instance, I've just created one field on account. I'm going to retrieve it, but then we can do more than that. So, for instance, if we have author Apex permission, we can withdraw Apex classes. We can have a look at the triggers, we can see layouts, we can see absolutely everything, permission sets. And this is a very... Oh. Okay, so we're back on. So from here, we're going to be able to actually retrieve everything that we had in our org. Okay, let's go to, you're going to see here objects. And we have retrieved the fields from account. You're going to see all of them, just because this little cloud here offered us this possibility, this opportunity. I'm going to have test. Here we can increase the length. If I'm going to increase the length, then I can actually send back. I can deploy it to the org. Let's say I would like to have the size 1,000. And if I'm going to right-click on the canvas, I'm going to be able to delete this project and delete all the information I sent to the org, deploy this source to org, and retrieve this source from our org. So I'm just going to deploy this, and we're going to notice the... Oh, it actually failed to run. Okay. Let me see what the issue is. Yes, that's correct. Okay, so we're just going to change the label then. Apologies. Label test 2. Okay, save that, deploy. So this was deployed. Let's navigate back to our org. If we're going to go to Object Manager, if we're going to go to Accounts, details, test, let's see. So test 2 should be here. Yes, so we have here a field called test 2. This is the easy way. Let's see, so what we have done already. We have installed the command line. We went to command palette. We have installed as well the Salesforce extension pack. This extension pack will give us the possibility of seeing here all the commands that SFDX support. As well, we have created a project with manifest. Why have we done this? Because this step is just going to take us, it's going to give us the opportunity of retrieving or deploying towards the org and back from the org exactly what the manifest file would give us permission to do. Every time we have deployed and retrieved something from the org, we had here in the terminal, on the built-in terminal, a command that was written. So this goes both ways. If we are going to use the terminal and we are going to deploy or retrieve from the org, it's going to get us in the same stage. These commands are not something that we must learn. We can just Google or SFDX, force, the namespace, org, and then if I can't remember anything else, I'm just gonna write here --help. And here we're gonna have all the answers and even sometimes examples or the other commands. We can have the list of the org, we can have force org open. Let's see what this command is going to do. So SFDX force org open, and it's just going to open our org. So everyone who's not using VS Code is very scared to go on this path. This is my notice. And now I would like to say that it's easier than ever to actually get used with SFDX. You can just, you have to install everything only once, and then you can just play around with it, and you're going to have access to so much more. I guess I can start some questions now.
Okay, I've got a question.
Okay.
If I may. What would you say is the biggest danger for an admin diving into VS Code? Because as you highlighted there, you could just right mouse click and hit delete. But are there other things that you've come across that admins should be aware about?
Yes, so the metadata can be overwritten if you're gonna deploy to an org the wrong information. This is going to be completely changed. This is why usually, I guess, Scratch orgs are more promoted. A Scratch org is like also an individual org where you can make changes and you can test, and they're also very quick. And then if everything works out, you can send the information further. But this way to connect with any org is, let's say, the most direct and the easiest. I would probably recommend playing around with the permission sets, like as I mentioned before. If you don't have auto Apex permission, then you can't retrieve the Apex classes, or you can take out some, let's say, from the profile or let's say you can take out, so you shouldn't, the admin shouldn't be allowed to make changes in the org, and via permission sets only to certain people, some of the changes can be opened up. They can have open access to some permission sets.
So always start in a Scratch org or a sandbox beginning, I guess.
Yeah, the only thing is that, for instance, if, let's say, you have a client and he doesn't want to give permission to have a dev hub in production, then you can't have a Scratch org. You can't create a Scratch org from a sandbox. You can only do that from production. So the only way of accessing your org would just be via I mean, if you want this way, it's just going to be via VS Code and just connecting with any org.
What would be the number one thing reason you'd say to admins to why they should try VS Code?
I guess it's not necessarily about VS. VS Code is really easy. There is a lot of information. In the last few years, it went from non-existent to one of the most favorite IDEs online. And this was like after a poll that Stock Exchange made, I believe, last year, and it was like the most favorite. I'm not sure how favorite it is now. Well, I'm sure it's quite, the rate of users is quite high compared with the other ones. Sorry, what was the question?
So if someone said what was one very best reason for an admin to go and use VS Code?
So it's lightweight and it's free and it's really easy to set up everything. And then I would just encourage to try to use this way of connecting to Salesforce. Because, for instance, if you have a project where you have to update 35-page layouts with, I don't know, 100 fields, then the easiest way is just to create one set of fields. So, sorry, not one set. Just create fields and then deploy them via command line, and it's going to be a lot more easier. So, instead of creating them manually, or I think this way is the fastest way. Can be done in half a day, and yeah.
No, that's a great question.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
Is there anything in VS Code and using those, that method of deploying stuff that you can do that you can't do in the change sets? Is there things that are available in VS Code that you can't do otherwise?
So I've been using chain sets before. I actually haven't thought about the difference between.
Okay.
Yeah, so lately I've been mainly using this method. So, yeah. And for instance, if I wanted to promote from one environment to another, let's say I just created an unmanaged package and I have deployed I have installed the package in another org, let's say. I found this as a more useful solution than to send chain sets. For instance, if I wanted to send the whole app first to UAT, I have deployed it this way, just creating a package, which you can also do with VS Code via the same method. And then I have deployed it to production as well. So this was the way of working. So chain sets I haven't really used in a while. Thank you. Any other questions?
Are there any metadata types that are maybe very difficult to manage in VS Code where you would rather fall back on a change set? I'm just thinking potentially permissions. Would you manage that also using VS Code?
Yes. So basically we have here package XML Salesforce documentation. I like to just Google things, and my goal is basically to encourage not to learn by heart answers, just to encourage people to Google before everything. So we have here everything, all custom objects, so everything that is supported by the package XML is in this documentation. Also, if we go here to the org browser, we could have here permission sets. Okay, there are no components available yet, but if I create a permission set, it is going to be deployed or retrieved from the org. Doesn't matter which way it's going to go. As well, you can convert metadata, and you can convert your source file from the old format to the new format. We have done it as well in the past from an org. So we have retrieved from an org metadata, and we had also on the same computer, so or locally, we converted from the metadata to source format to the new one. The easiest thing is that this is, let's say, when we are trying to retrieve fields or rules or permission sets, the easiest part is that we can see here in the name of the tags, somehow the description of that field. So we can see if it's required, if it's not required, we can change here true to false. And yes, coming back to Louise's question, I think one of the dangers is like if we don't have version control on our computer, this history won't be tracked. For instance, if I change here, I just change from a required field from false to true. So this field has become required, and this might impact the org, yes. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Yeah?
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Coacto are a Salesforce implementation company with over 18 years' experience working with Salesforce. With our expertise in Salesforce, supply chain and ERP projects, we're here to support customers and partners in all stages of their implementation. We have a track record of success helping organisations to realise their Salesforce vision. Coact with us to make Salesforce work for you or your customers. Coacto, we realise your Salesforce vision.